Hello, souls and demons, and welcome back to the portal. Today I just have two fairly short stories, so sit back, grip your seats, and enjoy. My dad used to work as a cop. This is the worst thing he ever experienced on the job. Written by MouseCurtains. My dad used to be a great dad. He used to take me out to watch baseball games, and we used to play soccer whenever he was free. He worked nights, but he still made as much time as possible for me and my mom. He was a great dad. Around the time I turned 10, he changed. He became a recluse, spending as much time away from home as possible. And when he had to return for a new shirt or a shower, he reeked of cigarettes and alcohol. He stopped being able to look me in the eye, choosing to ignore when I asked him to play with me outside. This spiraling into despair eventually caused my mom to file for divorce, and my dad settled for custody every other weekend. About 2 years later, he quit the job and started going to therapy. Now, as I turn 22, he's still not the happy-go-lucky man from 12 years ago, but he's a lot better, just more complacent and slightly somber. I decided to visit him for the week, see how he was getting on. He never remarried nor had a girlfriend after my mom. Not that I would completely be aware if he had, but I feel like he would have probably mentioned it at some point. To be honest, I had some ulterior motives with the visit. Reading some of the stories on Reddit about EMTs, police, and search and rescue officers and their creepiest experiences on the job made me want to find out if my dad had anything horrifying to relay to me. I sort of wish I hadn't asked him now. What he told me was a lot worse than some paranormal being lurking in the woods. It was downright disgusting. I'll format the story as if my dad were speaking in first person, just like he told me the sequence of events. This story details terrible sexual and physical violence towards children. Please read at your own peril. It was 2008 and you had just turned 10, remember? I bought you that little red bike. Yeah, you used to ride that damn thing all inside the house and your mother went ballistic. Not on the carpets, Johnny. It was pretty funny. Anyway, it's winter, so the roads are seriously icy. The snow is coming down heavy. It was almost like a blizzard. Rick and I, you remember Rick, right? Big black mustache, got shot in the foot in 2009 during a drug bust. He used to come to all your birthday parties. Ah, well, it doesn't really matter if you can't remember him. It's not that important that you know what he looks like. We're parked on the edge of an intersection on highway removed for privacy reasons, to watch for speeders and idiots without their headlights on. Pretty boring stuff. So we're just sat there when suddenly the radio turns on, request backup to a house in the rough part of town. We'd only been parked there for 10 minutes, but it was a long 10 minutes. So we're thinking, oh hell yeah, some real work. And so we bust our asses over there. Fast. Well, as fast as we could have. Like I said, the roads were icy. When we arrived, we realized there's only one other cop car there, with two officers stood near the hood of the car waiting for us, pistols locked and loaded in their hands. Now, I cannot for the life of me remember their names, but one of them was a young fella, new and all. We'll call him B and his old partner A. They brief us with the situation. Little boy called from inside the house, identified himself as missing 9-year-old Samuel Morrison. Said a man had snatched him off his bike and taken him to this abandoned house. Apparently the perpetrator had a mobile phone that the boy managed to sneak away to call 911 with. So A busts down the door, tells anyone who's in the house to show themselves now. This house is a big house, let me tell you that. It's 3 stories high with a basement, and large, open, empty rooms. Nobody shows themselves, so we keep clearing room after room, slowly ascending through the house. Every step causes large creaks to echo around us. And if I'm honest with you, kid, I was thoroughly freaked out. Something just did not sit right with me. We decided to split up, A and B taking the basement and Rick and I making our way to the top floor. The thing is, the house barely looked lived in at all. The whole thing smelt of bleach, and there were no cobwebs or anything. It just seemed to be clean and new and preserved. You know that feeling of just pure dread, when your stomach feels as though it's being dragged on the floor behind you? I never really had experienced that feeling until that day. When we finally reached the top floor, we noticed a small, shadowy figure standing in the last room at the end of the hallway, facing us. Rick shouted at it something like, "Hey Samuel, you're safe now. It's us, the cops." But when we got closer, and I shined my flashlight at it, nothing could have prepared us for what we saw. It was Samuel all right, but not as we'd hoped to find him. His eyes were sewn open, and they rolled back into his head. His skin was pale and blotchy, and his swollen tongue lolled out of his mouth. He had strings attached to his wrists, head, waist, and knees, causing him to seem as though he were standing upright. Rick began to retch, and, to make things worse, the string suddenly snapped, dropping the poor kid's lifeless body onto a crumpled heap of rotting kid meat on the floor. I rushed towards it, to find that a large, man-sized hole in the ceiling that led to the basement. I couldn't see anything up there, so I ran back to try and catch the sick fuck that would have done this to a little boy. Rick had gone. I assumed back to A and B to call for help, but when I got up there was no one there. A window in the attic was open, but it was far too small for someone to have escaped through. It didn't make any sense. I noticed a small tape recorder on the floor. I swear I didn't even press play on the damn thing, but it started to make sounds. It was muffled, but I eventually made out what sounded like a 911 call in Samuel's voice. It had been recorded. I realized then and there that the whole thing was some perverted setup. The forensic team was called to clear the crime scene away, and we filed the report. But we had no suspects. The poor kid's body had been washed with bleach, and there was no foreign DNA on him. He had been raped. The perpetrator had most likely moved his body to the abandoned house from the original crime scene to further hide his identity. We never found the guy. Thing is, when they went to search the house the next day, they found footprints in the snow leading up to the woods. The soles of the shoes were sanded down so they couldn't reveal any recognizable shoe brand or print. If he left after we did, which is the most likely scenario seeing as we didn't see anyone leave, nor were the prints there before, it meant he was still inside the house with us. That's the bit that always fucks with me the most. He was probably still in the attic whilst I hopelessly searched for him, probably grinning at me from the darkness. My best guess is, he was standing on the wooden beams above me. You know those beams that keep the roof stable? The sick fuck was probably staring down at me. It still doesn't make sense as to how nobody found him when the whole forensics team and other fresh-eyed cops were searching the place. Maybe he was hiding in the walls, I don't know. I don't really want to know. I have removed myself from that case. That's why I started drinking, son. You see, Samuel looked a lot like you. And he got kidnapped off his bike. All I could think about was, what if it had been you? What if that sick fuck had gotten to you? It still haunts me to think about it. Rick and I used to talk about it, you know. Speculate about it. That young fella B quit almost immediately after that. Moved town. Apparently they found child pornography on his computer, but that was just a rumor some of the other guys came up with as a joke. Still sticks with me, that one. That's when my dad stopped talking about it. He said he didn't want to talk anymore, and I understand why. It makes me sick just thinking about it. Let me know what you guys think. The Girl in the Painting. Written by SpillTheLesbeans. Me and my mom love thrift shopping. It's sort of the only thing we did to bond. We would look for old dolls and funky toys and would decorate the house with them. even though it was obvious my dad hated it, but he seemed to be supportive. "Honey, I'm going to a local estate sale, wanna come?" my mom shouted from down the stairs. I ran down the stairs, throwing on my favorite black flannel and jeans in hope of maybe meeting a cute girl, but I knew I was lying to myself. "I'm ready, Mom," I screamed, racing out the door to get into the car. "Took you long enough," she laughed as we both smiled at each other. 10 minutes later, we arrive at the sale. Hopping out the car just to see an old and big house. It looked like your stereotypical horror movie house. Black doors, creaking stairs, and a very silent and spooky atmosphere. A sweet old lady ran the sale. She had pale skin that seemed to be melting off of her face, red, bloodshot, tired eyes, curly gray hair that seemed to not have been washed since the 60s, and snaggly teeth. "Great, we just walked into a horror movie," I joked with my mom. As we walked up the stairs, I spotted a portrait from the corner of my eye. I picked it up and blew it off, only for so much dust to come flying out that made me sneeze. Ouch. The portrait was of a girl about my age. Flannel shirt that was like mine, jeans that were like mine, and hair that was like mine. She was leaning against a wall, smiling. Next to her seemed to be a bed, vanity, etc. It was weird to say the least, but fuck it, I wanted that. I ran down the stairs and held the painting up to the lady. "How much?" She froze for a second. She looked at the painting, then at me. Then the painting, then me. Then she smirked. "It's free, dear," she whispered in a scratchy voice. "Oh, thank you," I said, as I left the house with my mom. When I arrived at my house, I slapped the painting on my wall. It was beautiful. She was beautiful. That night I had a dream. In the dream, I woke up inside the painting. I looked around and in front, you could see my room. From behind me, someone grabbed my shoulders. I jumped, but she just laughed when I turned to look at her. "Ha, you fell for that so hard." She laughed at me. "Hey, get your..." "Wait, where the fuck am I?" I asked. In the painting? Isn't that where you thought you were?" she asked, confused. Sorta? No? Maybe?" I asked. She laughed so hard. She told me she was cursed to the painting by a witch to stay in there for eternity. Stupid, but okay. We talked about life in the painting, and by the time the sun rose, I was out of the painting. The dream felt real, a little too real. Every night after that, I would have a similar dream inside of the painting, talking to her about different things each night. But a weird thing always happened. At the end of the dream, she would pose. Then when I woke up, she would be in that pose in the photo. It scared me at first, but after a while it felt safe, warming, welcoming. Until one night she asked if she could give me a makeover. Of course I agreed. She did my makeup and put me into her clothes, and by the time she was done, we looked identical. "Well, the sun's rising, I better go," I told her. Her face became serious. "No, you are not leaving," she told me. I laughed, thinking she was joking. She remained serious. "It's okay, I'll just go through the painting myself," I said, as I walked near the exit. She grabbed the back of my shirt and slammed against the wall as she jumped out of the painting. "Stop! Get back here! Let me out!" I screamed as I banged on the glass. As the sun became full in the sky, I couldn't move. I tried to hit the glass and I tried to run, but I couldn't move. My mom walked into my room. "Hey, sweetie, the thrift shop just opened. You ready to go?" she asked. "Yes, Mom," the painting girl said as she turned to face me. "I just want to say bye to the painting," she said. She walked over to it. "Goodbye, sweetie," she whispered as she turned away. I tried screaming for help, but it was hopeless. All I could feel was the tiniest tear fall down my cheek. That night was one of the hardest. Itches everywhere. I watched her come back from the shop, showing me each and everything she bought, acting like she was my friend. I would watch her sleep and plot revenge. Sure, I was able to move around at night and pace the floor, but I was unable to exit the painting. I was stuck in here, with nothing but a phone and a pack of gum. I tried to call 911, but I had no cell service in the painting. All I had was a bit of mobile data. So if you're seeing this, please buy my painting. It is your destiny.